How on earth nobody figured out a quantitative solution to properly measure and quantify the team behind the startup? Because it generally, if you steal something, it has a negative connotation. Can have a startup on Monday morning, on Tuesday I finalize the idea with my co-founder, Wednesday I release the product, on Thursday customers are coming, and Friday I'm gonna be a billionaire.
How they envision it and how they get to know about startups is through these movies like The Social Network.
And if I make the same mistake again, I really need to learn that lesson, because it seems to me I fall for the same trap twice or three times or God knows how many times.
Not everybody has access to seed funding or pre-seed funding, or for anybody who bootstraps. Okay, how can they gauge the market if there's demand or not?
In the startup industry, things can change so quickly that yesterday you were one of the most celebrated Forbes 30 under 30 cover of the Forbes magazine type of CEOs. Things change and you lost everything and you need to start from scratch.
And there are some people who don't even look for co-founders, who will just want to do everything alone.
Right.
My own thoughts are running one after another. So I say, hold your horses and then think about it.
If a task in your mind takes less than 2 minutes, do it.
If you're somebody who relies too much on it, then you're doomed.
It can be taken away. It's not yours. You just sign up to a service and OpenAI can say that, hey, the API is not working, ChatGPT is down. And then what?
Happens quite often.
Now, as an investor, where is the guarantee that those individually fantastic people, they really can work together under a lot of pressure for a long period of time?
And I think this adds to your personal brand as well. So if I say no to you about something, you would remember me, because it's a rare quality. The fool didn't know it was impossible, so he did it. I love it, man. I love it. You know what? I'm going to steal this one. Welcome back to Building Balance with Muhammad Ali, the podcast where we help young men build fulfilling lives through self-care, relationships, and finances. Today, we're connecting these pillars to the messy human side of building, staying healthy, protecting your relationships, and leading people well. My guest is Soma Pirityi, co-founder and CEO of ETA Technologies, where he helps founders and investors understand the people behind the pitch, team fit, blind spots, and how we actually work together under pressure. We're keeping this real and human: clarity, conflict, energy, and the relationships that make it all worth it. So, Soma, welcome. Shoma, sorry about the name. I'm still learning. So, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And not much to add after this detailed introduction. So once again, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So before we get into what I have planned for you, if you could give our audience an introduction about yourself.
So I think I'm quite a unique figure in the startup ecosystem overall, because I'm extremely lucky to say that I have experience on both sides of the coin. Once I was an entrepreneur after I spent 5 years in venture capital, and you know how it is. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So since 2024, I'm back with my entrepreneurial hat, and as you rightfully said, I founded ETA Technologies. And basically, the business what I'm doing right now is very much coming from my background as a venture capitalist. We will talk more about it, but perhaps a little bit of a hint. There is an age-old saying in VC: investors invest in people. However, even the best venture capitalists, including Sequoia or Anderson Horowitz, they openly talk about it, that they are able to identify only 2 out of 10 unicorns in early stage. And it was really weird for me that an industry which is so openly bragging about that we prioritize people, we invest in people, we invest in the team, not the pitch deck, not the financials, not the technology. How on earth nobody figured out a quantitative solution to properly measure and quantify the team behind the startup? In the last 2 years of my venture capital career, I was desperately looking for such a tool or even a methodology what I could apply. I found none, so I created my own company. I left, and now I am licensing this technology to all investors and possibly helping them to make more data-driven decision when they are laser focused on the people.
Thank you for that. Okay, before the pitch deck, let's meet the person. So what's one small daily ritual that makes your day about 10% better? And sleep, movement, unplug time, anything.
Well, it's definitely has to do with exercise because I really need to spend my 1 hour in the gym on a daily basis. Otherwise, I'm completely dysfunctional. And I wouldn't call it as a ritual because sometimes I'm doing it in the morning, sometimes I'm doing it midday, sometimes after my calls in the afternoon. But it's exceptionally important for me, just as the whole topic of this show, to find the balance and just let some steam off and let my mind to wander around, digest what happened over the day, and generally just have has a helicopter overview what's really going on. Because I think as an entrepreneur, the great danger that you are so much living and breathing the problem that sometimes you don't find the solution, which is obvious. So you need to have, you call it a ritual, an hour, half an hour a day when you completely switch off, not always buzzing around with your emails, talking to clients, talking with investors. You are just doing something completely different. And this is where your mind really can digest beyond the sleep and really can figure out something which is obvious, but you do not necessarily notice because you are so laser focused on the problems of the everyday life. So if I need to pick one, it's definitely my time in the gym.
And would it be right to say that you have to steal that time from yourself, right? When you were building something.
I'm not really calling it as stealing because it generally, if you steal something, it has a negative connotation. I think it's as much necessary as like doing your emails, talking to your clients, or just keeping an eye on the market. Because if you skip any of these steps, and do not necessarily, when I introduce myself, okay, how much revenue you generated, how many startups you tested, how many hours in a week you spend in a gym, it's not necessarily part of my number one introduction, but it is as important from a productivity perspective as a CEO as like responding to the emails and once again spending time with clients. So I'm not necessarily saying I'm stealing this time, rather prioritizing it and scheduling it properly so I really can create a balance in my life and in my work.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you. Um, and when you talk about these numbers, many people attach that to their introductions as well and success as well. So what's belief you had early about success that you no longer hold, and what changed it?
Well, when I started my entrepreneurial career, I was really blinded by those flashy stories on social media that you really can make it overnight. You can have a startup on Monday morning. On Tuesday, I finalized the idea with my co-founder. Wednesday, I released the product. On Thursday, customers are coming, and Friday, I'm gonna be a billionaire. And there is a lot of stories like this on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms, and I think it's really poisonous because startup is about consistency. And just like everybody else, I jumped into this with like really high hopes that, hey, I start this journey on Monday, and by Friday, I'm going to be flourishing. Everybody's celebrating me. I'm making a lot of money. And I think the more I learned, the more I failed, the more I experienced in the startup ecosystem, the more I realized that there is no such thing as overnight success. Whenever you see a company which is, oh, yesterday we had zero revenue, and 2 days later we reached a billionaire status, a unicorn status, and we generate such and such millions, you always must assume that there are like years or months hard work behind it, which just clicked one day to another. I think it's a really toxic mythology, the overnight success. And once in my career, I fall for that. I pay the price. And now, if I need to pinpoint that, what is the number one belief which I hold in the past? And I changed fundamentally that there is no such thing as overnight success. You possibly can read many of those flashy social medias. On Monday, I came up with an idea. On Tuesday, I assembled my team. On Wednesday, I released the product. On Thursday, customers came, and by Friday, I'm a billionaire. So this is just not possible. And you always need to assume that this is a classic category of too good to be true. And startups are about consistency, doing something, quite frankly, not extraordinary, but an extraordinary long time. Always being resilient, always pushing back. It doesn't matter how many no's you receive in a day, in a month, in a year. You're always back in business. You're always fighting, and that's the way to build something. And I think the most important is absolutely the consistency, and to never ever believe this false mythology of the overnight success.
But unfortunately, many you would know many the younger generation is very interested in having their own founding startups, right? And they how they envision it and how they get to know about startups is through these movies like The Social Network and LinkedIn, social media posts here and there, and they don't realize that it's about milestones and it's a long journey, especially these young people that dream of becoming billionaires very, very soon. And and as you mentioned, it's about being consistent. So while we're on that subject, it wouldn't be wrong to say that even if you're the smartest person in the industry, in the ecosystem, you will make mistakes, you will drop the ball. Of course. So if you could please tell me about a time you dropped the ball, and what did it teach you about asking for help in setting boundaries?
So yeah, I really consider myself and my life just a sets of failure, which I learned from and I grow from it. And that's how I time to time succeed. But ultimately, just like all the entrepreneurs, 8 out of 10 decisions I make on a daily basis is bad one. But it's really important, the perception and the perspective that I never ever view a failure, a failed company, or a missed opportunity as something which, crying in the corner all day long. I always say that, okay, happened what happened. The most important that I learned from it, and I'm not going to make the same mistake again. And if I make the same mistake again, I really need to learn that lesson, because it seems to me I fall for the same trap twice or 3 times or God knows how many times. So, to answer your question with a specific example from my life, possibly the second startup I founded was a great learning experience for me, because after my first success with my first startup, I was like, oh my god, I'm the next Steve Jobs. Whatever I touch, it's gonna turn gold. So I had a fair hubris, and with the second company I made the mistake that I was following my idea and not what the market was telling, because it was a great idea, but when we developed the product, when we raised the funds, when we did all the work, we realized that we missed such a critical step. We didn't do the market research properly, because it was revolutionary. It was a really good technology. I worked with some extremely smart people. However, we never ever asked the customers that, do you really need this? Is this really a problem for you? And it sounds as a childish example, but when your first startup succeeded, you are at the second year of your university, you feel so omnipotent that I can't make bad decisions. I figure this is going to be a good idea and I will make it happen. And what we needed to realize that we spent tremendous time developing the product, putting the plans together, but we failed because the demand on the market was not there. And you cannot sell something to the customers if they don't feel the problem. They had no emotional connection. And last but not least, they don't feel it, they don't understand it. And I think this is where the idea fundamentally failed. But once again, it was a fascinating learning experience for me, because as a result, whatever project I do, including ETA Technologies, the first step always asking the people, what is your problem? With my technology, am I solving a real problem? Or, I'm just circling around the wonder of engineering.
And while we're at it, because not everybody has access to seed funding or pre-seed funding, or for anybody who bootstraps, okay, how can they gauge the market, if there's demand or not? Because many people think the idea in your head as a aspiring founder, it sounds fascinating and it sounds valid, viable, and that would turn things to gold. but how do we actually validate?
So there are three ways to do that in my mind. Number one, if you or one of your co-founders, they are coming from the industry. So at some point in your life, you were living and breathing this problem. Uh, Fintech and banking is a really good example. If you figure something out, a innovative solution, what you want to sell to the banks, it's really beneficial if you have a banker on board, because that's how you make sure that this is a real problem. For 5 years I spent at Deutsche Bank or whatever, every single day, this was one of the most painful problems for me. I left the bank, I figured out a solution, and basically I'm selling to myself because, if it was a problem for me, it's a problem for the industry as well. So this is number one. Number two, generally just, doing market research. There are so many papers which, it does not require a seed funding, does not require any money, that going on Reddit, going on social media, going on LinkedIn, and just taking a look that I want to sell to the banks. What are the biggest problems they are facing? What they are constantly complaining about when they are writing an obnoxious LinkedIn post that, oh, how bad this and that. What are the specific problems they are complaining about? And last but not least, just generally do customer interviews. Does not cost any money. And this is, I think, the best way to validate an idea, that literally you talk to your customers. I have an idea. I talk to you that, hey, this is my idea. I'm solving this problem. Is it really a problem for you? Would you pay for this solution? And how much would you pay for that? Doesn't cost anything. But if you skip this step, I guarantee you are multiplying the probability that you're going to fail, because ultimately you create something what the market does not need. And once again, it costs £0. And by the way, if you find while you are doing the customer interviews that it's really difficult even to do interview with the people who are your future customers, that's a big sign for you that the sales cycle is going to be a really vicious one.
Very, very, thank you. Thank you. Very, very powerful insight there. Moving towards the where when the stakes are high. So we just talked about initial stages, right? Yeah, idea stage. When when the stakes are high, how do you keep Shoma the human bigger than Shoma the role?
Well, I think, a fair sense of humor is really important, and to surround yourself with people who, it doesn't matter how big of a CEO you are, how successful you are, how much money you make. At the end of the day, you are a human being. And if you are, in the startup industry, things can change so quickly that yesterday you were one of the most celebrated Forbes 30 under 30 cover of the Forbes magazine type of CEOs. Things change and you lost everything and you need to start from scratch. And whatsoever bad or good things happen to you, always remind yourself that, well, it can change so quickly. And that's the beauty of it, that this is not, startups are not like gigantic corporations which are moving, really slowly. It's moving extremely fast on the good days and on the bad days as well. And I think, how I check myself and how I keep myself under control, just surrounding myself with friends, advisors, and relationships which are constantly questioning everything, that I never ever fall into the mistake that because over the last 30 days I made just good decisions, there is a natural linear regression that the next decision you are about to make is going to be a good one, because just take a look at the statistics. You always need people around you who are questioning you, who are challenging you, who are telling you that, look, yes, you made these good decisions in the past, but this is no guarantee that the next one and the one after is going to be a good one. And I think if you skip this step and you create like an echo chamber in the company when everybody agrees you, everybody adores you, everybody's like, oh my God, I'm working with this amazing Shoma CEO, Forbes 30 under 30 guy. This is a painful road to failure, because you need people who are constantly keeping you close to the ground. And once again, a good sense of humor. A good sense of humor. As long as you can crack a joke, whatsoever miserable situation you and the company is, you know that this is a healthy company. This is a healthy company. This is a healthy culture. What you are building.
Beautiful, beautiful. This your response naturally gets us to my next segment, which was it's people due diligence, without killing the vibe. I'm trying to keep this very practical and human in the way that it's easier for our audience to comprehend these responses. So I'm keeping it very simple as I can. So, what three questions should people ask before committing to a co-founder? Like values, decision style, pressure test. So, any that you would recommend? Because as you mentioned, having people, the right people close to you, it involves looking for those people. How do you?
Yeah. So first of all, do the ETA test. I mean, that's the best way to do that. But beyond the self marketing, if I need to narrow it down just to three questions, number one obviously would be that how you react when things turn to bad. Like tell me about a time in your life when you really felt miserable, you really felt the anxiety, how you were reacting. And many times, the best way to ask this question is not necessarily asking the person who is sitting in front of you, but asking a previous employee, a previous co founder, perhaps a family member, or something like this. Because generally, entrepreneurship is extremely stressful and it's a bumpy road. So, you are going to experience together like days when things are awful compared to the days when everything is flying and sunshine, lollipop, pops, rainbows. And you want to work with someone who you are completing each other from a stress management perspective. If you're a type of person who is constantly panicking, overthinking everything, you want someone in the office who is calm and calculated and cold and can say that, hey, okay, I understand we have 2 weeks runaway time. Let's calm down. Let's have a plan and try to make the most of it. And I guarantee we're going to succeed if you don't panic. And vice versa. If you are someone who's a born gambler, you have a really like close relationship with risk and like, hey, let's do it. It doesn't matter that it has a potential to turn the company upside down. I'm just going to do it because I see 1% chance of success. If that's the case, you want someone who is always make sure to hold you close to the ground. Once again, balance is exceptionally important. Number two, this is basically coming from a really scary statistics. So one Harvard study once proved that 65% of startups, they are suffering from massive co-founder misalignment. And many times when we speak about co-founder
Suffering from what?
founder misalignment,
Okay.
this is a really interesting point because, you think if I build together a company with someone, we are rowing in the same direction. This is obvious, isn't it? Now, 65% of the startups who went through on this study, Harvard found that actually they disagree on so many things, which is not rocket science. They just never ever properly sit down and talk about the duties and responsibilities, talk about the future of the company, and even more important, that okay, we see the line which is connecting A to B, but how we get to B exactly, what we need to do on a daily basis. So that's why my second question that how much time you are willing to sacrifice in order this company to succeed? What's your limit? Like many people in the startup ecosystem normally say that I'm working on 3 years projects, which means that I'm more than happy to invest 3 years of my life into the next company, into the next business, whatever it takes, pivoting, building, selling, everything. But if in 3 years' time we went to nowhere, we need to abandon the ship. Period. And it's interesting because for many people, a startup they are building, oh, I'm going to invest my whole life into this. And early on, you must clarify that are you a type of person to whom this is just a 3 year project, or you are a type of person who is saying that I want to invest my next, 60 years of my life into this because I'm just so passionate about the problem. And possibly number three, that what are the values what the other person is standing for? Because this is the foundation of the company. Are we gonna do things in a classic Silicon Valley style that break everything and slow and steady, growing fast and hiring a lot of people, failing fast, firing fast, or we are rather a business which is following the ancient philosophy, slow and steady wins the race? And these are extremely crucial questions. And I believe many times when a co-founder relationship is formed, people just People just look for skills that, hey, I'm a sales guy, so I need someone who's technical. I'm technical. I need, a cheeky commercial person. And skipping these questions, maybe they are uncomfortable questions, but just think about it. What all the big sharks in the valley are saying, co-founder relationship is like marriage, and a good marriage can survive a lot of difficult conversations.
Beautiful. And uh, uh, because it's hard to teach to young people, because they're not, I wouldn't say only to young people, anybody who comes into the startup ecosystem with those dreams that we earlier talked about. It's hard to for them to look into the practical sides initially. Once they get correct me if I'm wrong. When entering, I am only assuming most founders do not think about these things, right? Do not think about the longer run. And there are some people who don't even look for co-founders, who will just want to do everything alone, right? So that's another crowd in itself.
Yeah, just on that, in inner brackets, that back in my days when I was an investor, we had a saying that, without a co-founder, like a solopreneur, as we call it, it's impossible to build a unicorn. Because if you couldn't convince another person that this is a good idea, how you will convince your customers, how you will convince your users, how you will convince, your future investors, if you couldn't find literally on planet Earth another person who can back this idea with their skill set and knowledge and expertise. And I believe, you know, AI has changed the landscape fundamentally. Um, I listened to a fantastic podcast with Mark Cuban, and he said that the first trillionaire entrepreneur will be a guy on his own in a basement, just knowing AI better than anybody else. So I think, as much as back in my days, we never ever paid a lot of attention to solopreneurs, the game has changed. I personally myself see a lot of people who are very successful and they are on their own. They are just using tremendous AI tools and AI solutions. But nevertheless, in order to do that, because you shouldn't forget about that, a co-founder is not just about a technical extension of your business or commercial extension of your, once again, wonder of engineering, but someone who you can rely on, someone who is cheering you up or holding you back, once again, the people side of things. And I believe that very, very, very soon we are getting to the point where building a unicorn will be possible on your own with these tremendous AI solutions. But you shouldn't underestimate that how much more, like, soft touch the co-founder can give to you. And not to mention that in order to do that, you need to have like an absolutely exceptional entrepreneurial persona. And how many people have it and how many people can embrace it, that's a whole different question.
Beautiful. And if I were to jump into startups, I would never want to quit alone. Because okay, let's say if I would join, I would look for a co-founder. So what early red flags do you wish people or more teams notice, and what's the one week one response when you see them? So if I chose a co-founder, let's say my core team, okay, I see some red flags. What do I?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest red flags is the lack of commitment. There are a lot of people who are so-called playing it safe. That I keep my 9 to 5 and I'm working on this project in the side, like a couple of hours per day. And hey, I'm contributing, I am there, but on the other side, I need to make money. Now, I understand that you need to make money, you need to make a living. However, startups generally require commitment. And if at any point in time you find that someone is just not committed, just be honest with them. Sit down and tell them that, listen, this business is my life. I'm super excited about it. I'm really, really keen to elevate it to the next level, whatever it means. Signing up more customers, developing a new feature, making more money, whatever is there. I don't feel that we are on the same page regarding the commitment. Why is that? Another red flag, and this is something what we are detecting a lot with ETA packages when we are starting only co-found relationships. That psychologically, people are attracted to the similar. Like, I'm risk averse. I don't want to work with a gambler. I'm over conscientious. I want to work with someone who is a perfectionist. And this is creating, and we partially touched it already, this is creating a really unhealthy echo chamber in the startup where nobody is challenging everything because the cognitive diversity which is surrounding the board is just extremely one dimensional. And that's the perfect way how to fail a company, because when everybody thinks the same in the room and no one is questioning, no one is seeing it from the other perspective, you have one opinion. It doesn't matter that, seven people surrounding you, but still it is one opinion and nobody is challenging it. And you need to look for people who are completing you. If you are a perfectionist, you need someone who's not a perfectionist. And I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea, because just using this analogy, if you are a perfectionist, your standards are extremely high. You possibly say that, well, we start those operations when everything is in place. Meanwhile, a person whose conscientiousness is lower on the scale, they say that, hey, we have a product 50% ready, let's start on the market, let's selling, let's talk to the customers, and whatsoever happens, we gain some feedback. And this is fundamentally clashing. But from a CEO, from a founder perspective, it's essential to understand that what you really need in the company is balance. And you get balance if you recruit people who are different. And it doesn't matter how annoying for you on a personal level, you need to do it in order to succeed with the business, with the company.
I'm thinking thing from a newbie's perspective. The way you're saying, you're coming from a lot of experience. From the other side, if somebody's a newbie and they've partnered with somebody, they have a co-founder. If there's if a mismatch appears mid-bid, so in that case, how do you have the hard conversation without blowing up the relationship? Because for many people, it's sensitive having that hard conversation.
you know, if this relationship meant to survive, a hard conversation just makes it more stronger. If generally you are too afraid to discuss some really touchy or really personal topics with your co-founder, this is immediately a sign that something is not okay. Because you need to make difficult decisions, you need to have difficult conversations, and the more you try to avoid it, it's like a time bomb. One day it's gonna blow up, and maybe you skip the part that today we have a difficult conversation, but this skipping mechanism is like, going to destroy your business 2 months, 3 months, 2 years down the line. Because you need to have debate, you need to have argument, you need to have this cognitive diversity I mentioned earlier. You can't, I'm not saying that you can't play the nice guy, because it's never about being rude or contemptuous, but it is, as a CEO, as a founder, it is always ensuring that we are all on the same page and just pushing and continuing the conversation until we don't achieve this point that, okay, we are all on the same page and we are all following the same vision, what we all can agree on. And just to add something, sorry, just to add something to your point, as a historic example, which is my absolute favorite, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, two completely different style of entrepreneurship, two completely different style of leadership. Like, Jobs was a classic dictator, a visionary, someone who says that, hey, I have my vision. Either you submit or I bulldoze you out from the company. Bill Gates was a person who was like, hey, I don't really have an agenda. I just want to surround myself with really smart people. And together we will formulate this agenda. Now, those guys, separately from each other, they built two extremely successful business. And the reason why I'm always telling this example, because it's not black and white. There is no like, okay, this is the perfect recipe, the blueprint, what you should follow. The only blueprint you should follow that, surround yourself with people who are comfortable with the culture you are building or you are capable of building. Because just imagine that those people working with Jobs and Gates, they really liked it. They really liked that, Jobs being super confident and saying that we're gonna do it this way, despite all the evidence, despite all the research. I know what's best, and to execute. Gates was like, "Hey guys, let's figure something out together. What's your opinion? What's your opinion? What's your opinion? Let's mediate this conversation." There's no agenda once again. And finding those people who are comfortable with the mechanism what you are installing in the company, this is the most important point. And for sure, you find many brilliant people, amazing people who are just not a good match, and you need to let it go.
Mm. And that's one of the very important parts of building a startup, right? Letting the mismatched people out.
Yeah, yeah, and no hard feelings. It's just a mismatch. You are amazing, you are fantastic, you are a genius in your own field, but we cannot work together because there is zero chemistry, zero dynamics. Period.
Perfect, perfect. And for our audience, it's okay to do this. So for it's you wouldn't be you wouldn't have don't have to feel bad about it doing so, because you're building something. And if your mission, let's say, it could be any mismatch could mean a lot of things, values, or a mission is not the same, or the way of working, the leadership style is not the same, so it could be anything. So yeah, it's okay to part ways. And I would argue it's actually healthy to do it sooner, as soon as you realize there's a mismatch. We just talked about mismatch, right? And what to do, and on red flags and all of that. But there's a toll that businesses and building, when you're building anything, there's a toll on yourself as well, right? You have to balance your own life as well. During these intense sprints when you're building a business, what's one non-negotiable you use to protect time with loved ones? Rituals, check-ins, walk-in talks, so anything. So on this podcast, I emphasize this is one of the major for us and my audience as well. So protecting your relationships while not really giving up your work, but again about.
Yeah, it's a very important question because in my career I have seen many amazingly successful people who completely lost themselves in the success because they were not connected with their friends. They lost family members, not just physically, but for example, they never ever called their father, their mother, which is in my terminology, it's completely unacceptable because life has multiple layers. For sure, if you have a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to succeed with business. But on the other side, you shouldn't forget about it that life has multiple dimensions. You have your family, you have your partner, you have your friends, you have your hobby, you have your social life, so on and so forth. And if you bulldoze them out from the picture, the business is going to suffer as well. So for me, it's really important that I never switch off technically, so I'm always available if something really bad happened to the company. But over the weekend I scheduling my calendar, for example a date night or going out with my friends or regularly calling my parents, and this is as important as a client meeting or a monthly update for the shareholders. And I think the most important thing that you can do is scheduling those stuff, because of course it's on the back of your head that yes I should call my mom, but if it's not scheduled, especially with the extremely busy calendar of an entrepreneur, it's really easy, not necessarily saying to forget about it, but to put it on a lower priority list. Meanwhile, if it's scheduled that okay, Saturday evening we have a date night with my partner, it's in the calendar, it's in there. You are unconsciously preparing for that as much as you are preparing for an investor conversation or, for example, a discussion with your tech team. And this is helping me a lot, to not to turn into a robot, just always working, always working, always working, but keep my human side and stay in touch with people. And I know it sounds ridiculous that, you schedule a call with your friend in your work calendar, but trust me, it's really working. And that's why I do recommend. Yeah, you see? And many people do that. Many people do that because if it's not scheduled, if you just, casually, hey, we should catch up for a coffee. I'm telling you, man, it's never happening. It's never happening because everybody is busy. Everybody has so many things to do. If it's not in the calendar, if it's not there, putting with pencil, putting with pen, it's just a promise that, hey, we should catch up. And guess what? 10 years later, you cross each other on the street and oh man, has been ages. You know what I mean? And, you want to avoid this because there are a lot of friends who you just want to keep in touch. They help you a lot. You're genuinely interested in their life. You want to be there with the big moments. And This is as important from a work-life balance perspective as answering those tremendous emails in your inbox.
For people like me who have neurodivergent in a way, so I have ADHD. Um, I need these systems in place. I keep my so and if I have to be with I have a commitment, even if it's personal. Yeah, I register it on my calendar so that I know I have to, because one of the downsides, one of the challenges people with ADHD face is we forget. I can tell you stories about that. If and that's very helpful, and I practice this a lot as well. Okay, let's talk about stress spikes, because that's another common thing when you're building something. Which two levers do you pull? One slow thinking ritual, one quick energy reset. So in my notes, I've written these two down because for me these two could help. Like one slow thinking ritual where I try to just take a deep breath and take it slow. My own thoughts are running one after another. So I say, oh, hold your horses and then think about it a little. So what in during those stress spikes, how do you suggest people?
Well, there are two things what I'm practicing a lot. The number one, if I find any task, replying to an email, confirming a meeting, just calling back somebody really quickly, or just adding another point to the agenda for the tech team. If a task in your mind takes less than 2 minutes, do it. Do it immediately instead of adding to a to-do list. Just do it. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're gonna be 2 minutes late from the next meeting, as I was, late in your meeting. But trust me, if something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Don't add to the to-do list. So this is for the short term. For the long term, I think whenever I face like some really stressful situations, some really stressful decisions, I always ask myself the question that is it a one-way door or a two-way door decision? A one-way door decision, something what you cannot revert back. You cross the door and the door is closed and there is no way back. Now, a two-way door decision that I open the door, I wander around the room, and after through the same door, I left the room. And this is really important to always be crystal clear whether can I revert back this decision if I commit to that. And if I find that because of some reasons, maybe financial reasons, maybe technological reasons, maybe because of human resource reasons, this is a one-way door decision, I always give myself 24 hours. Because in the next 24 hours, first of all, I will have a good night's sleep. And even more important, I go to the gym. And as I mentioned to you, this ritual is really important for me because whenever I'm running in the gym, I have this helicopter overview. And I notice something which I couldn't notice previously because I was so lost in the details. If it's once again a two-day door decision, maybe contemplate how important it is. But to be honest with you, those decisions when you can revert back, make a mistake, learn from it, cut the line, back in business. But if it's a one-day door decision, I always, always, always push that. Look, I need 24 hours. And by the way, if it's a business decision, if someone wants to sell you something and they say that, look, listen, there's no 24 hour, you need to make a decision right here and right now, that's a dodgy one because there's always 24 hour. There's always 24 hour. And, I'm openly saying that, look, if the so-called discount code is going to expire in 24 hours time and I find that I need the software, I'm happy to pay the full price, but I need 24 hours.
Beautiful, beautiful, and this is one of the market. I have a marketing career. People, I've seen this being practiced.
Generating urgency, name of the game.
This taps into basically your subconscious, and you just act on it anyway. Okay, you've just mentioned about some good ways to add into your process. Let's talk about subtracting. Okay, what's one thing you stopped doing that instantly made life?
Well, when ChatGPT appeared, just like many people, I was really heavily relying on it. Like, writing all my emails, writing all my proposals, putting together all my presentations. It was always like, hey, I'm not gonna do the ChatGPT is doing it for me. And this is something which I stopped roughly half a year ago, because I realized that ChatGPT is really useful. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing what you can produce with it. But 100% outsourcing everything, this is leading to a lot of mistakes, what you need to clean up later down the line. And ultimately, you will find that you spend more time with the task if you just sit down and say that, okay, I'm going to invest right now 10 minutes. When you clean up the mess, you're going to spend like hours with it. And even more important, it's very easy to lose touch and lose an emotional connection, because there was an amazing MIT study which said that those people who wrote their essays, just by using ChatGPT, they were unable to quote almost nothing out of this essay. And when they were asked that, hey, is it your essay really? They were like, no, not really, not really. It was written by ChatGPT. I gave the machine a couple of instructions, but I don't really feel this is my essay. And that's why I stopped like 100% relying on AI tools, because I really want to have a good emotional connection with my baby, with my company. And I started to feel a certain psychological or emotional distance that everything was produced by AI. I was just involved in the process, clicking the buttons. And I was like, I don't feel this is my company. I feel that I'm just the guy clicking the buttons. And that's why, maybe I'm spending more time with those emails, more time with those proposals. But I'm telling you, at the end of the day, it really benefits me, because I put together presentations, 50 slides, 100 slides. And when people ask me about that, okay, and what's this statistics on slide number 58 or whatever, I was like, no clue, no clue. Meanwhile, when you just use these tools to enhance your capability, you end up with a really good, precious, and fantastic material, but still you keep your emotional connection with the business. So, once again, I'm not saying that you should throw out the window all those productivity tools, but find a nice balance how you can keep your emotional connection with the business and every single particle of the business in it.
I've been listening to a few podcasts where people share about some studies, and I think they're from Harvard and MIT as well, where they looked at brains of people who
That was really scary.
really
Scary.
fascinate. Ah, that's scary and fascinating as well. So, and I think this technology has, if you're somebody who relies too much on it, then you're doomed. You're otherwise, if you use it smartly, then I think it can do lot of good to you.
And if you rely 100% with your business, it can be taken away. It's not yours. You just sign up to a service, and OpenAI can say that, hey, the API is not working, ChatGPT is down. And then what? And then what?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Which quite happens quite often. Moving on to the interesting part,
Okay, okay, okay.
quick hit on incentives and boundaries. So, because money and energy follow attention, what do investors often misunderstand about team dynamics, and how can a leader communicate team health clearly without?
Man, back in the days when I was an investor, I think the biggest mistake and the biggest like false impression I had, that a lot of smart people individually, they will form a smart team. And let me explain what I think. Any pitch deck ever in life looks the same. Each and every one of the slides, they are presenting you with a lot of quantitative numbers, that how big of a problem we talk about, total addressable market, forecasted revenue for the next 5 years, so on and so forth. Except one slide, which is the team slide. I get to the team slide, I see a couple of individually really accomplished people, graduated from Harvard, Yale, MIT, Cambridge, Oxford, you name it. I'm ex Google, you're ex McKinsey, yada da. Individually, everybody is super genius, super smart, gifted. Now, as an investor, where is the guarantee that those individually fantastic people, they really can work together under a lot of pressure for a long period of time? I invested in those companies where the CEO was ex McKinsey, the CTO was ex Google, the COO was ex Amazon, you name it, like an A team. And guess what? They disassembled. And they disassembled because of a very, very human and very, very simple reason. The smarter you are, higher your ego, therefore, lower the probability you can work harmoniously with others. Because, it's really a natural thing. If You are super accomplished. You think you are the smartest guy in the room. And if the room is full of people who think that I am the smartest guy, everybody wants to be the leader. Everybody wants to be that, hey, follow my direction. I'm the big shark here. And instead of building a company together, you constantly just fight and fight and fight for leadership and whose vision should be, put in the first place. And it's just never going to work. And I would reiterate this point back to what I told you about the co-founder relationship. Diversity, especially cognitive diversity, is exceptionally important. Don't try to recruit just the smartest engineers. Equally recruit people who are good in sales. Equally recruiting people who are not meticulous in the details, because those people can have a helicopter view. And if everybody is detail oriented and like super meticulous, you're gonna miss the whole point. You're gonna miss the big picture. So try to analyze what the company needs from a leadership standpoint and pick the people accordingly, but always avoid creating an echo chamber, because this is how you kill your startup.
Hmm. Makes total sense. Makes to and on that subject, and this is going to be my last question before my rapid fire. Uh, Saying no, a graceful no, because saying no is a very important part building something, right? If you could give us a graceful way to say no to misaligned opportunities, an email template or anything, any wording founders could use, because a lot of people find it really hard to say no to opportunities because of misaligned opportunities. So how could we gracefully say that?
There's a saying which I really like, and that's the following: if I can't trust your no, how I can trust your yes? And I think it tells a lot why saying no is so important. Because just imagine if you say yes every single time to opportunities, to like partnerships, to sales, you end up in a territory when you try to please everybody and you end up pleasing no one. Because if, you know, everybody is super, if there is a tool which is good for everything, this tool is good for nothing. And always think about this analogy, that saying no is as important as saying yes. And saying the right yeses and saying the right nos, the way to build your business. How to do it in a practical way? I think the best advice I can give you is honesty. You know why this opportunity or this collaboration deserves a no. Just be upfront and transparent. And you will be surprised that many times people try to sugar the pill. Many times they are like, well, if I tell it to your face that why I want to say no, you will be offended. You're going to hate me. But you will be surprised many times people say that I respect it if you tell them the truth. But look, this opportunity looks amazing. However, my company right here and right now is focusing on another direction. And this collaboration would be so much of a distraction. I cannot risk losing focus. So, respectfully, I need to say no for now. This is not a no for never, it's a no for now. Situations will change, companies are changing, opportunities are changing down the line. Let's revisit this conversation when the right time comes for me and the right time comes for you to work together. Simple, easy, and honest. Don't try to fabricate like white lies to avoid offending people, because that's not the way to build a startup. The way to build a startup: be honest, be transparent, and just ensure people that you can trust my no, therefore you can trust my yes.
Beautiful, and it shows
Yeah.
character, right? Like, having the audacity, having courage to say no, because it does, for whatever reason, you're authentic. And I think this adds to your personal brand as well. So if I say no to you about something, you would remember me, because it's a rare quality, right? Not everybody has the courage to do this. So thank you for validating that. Okay, let's do a quick fire, a rapid fire. Okay, okay. Tiny habit that saves your day on tough weeks.
The 2 minute rule, as I mentioned to you. If I find a task which can be done in 2 minutes, I'm doing it. I'm doing it immediately instead of adding to the to do list. Efficient, simple, and absolutely saving me for pains.
a question you ask yourself when you're stuck?
Does this problem is really going to count in 5 years' time? That's what That's what I ask myself because many times I realize that the reason why I'm stuck because I'm unable to see like a high level overview. This question, what is the biggest problem for me in 5 years time, then the business is successful, or maybe when the won't be around anymore. Does this really matter? Is this really the way I'm building the future, which is leading to the 5 years' time? And 9 out of 10, I realized that no. Therefore, I shouldn't worry about it. Therefore, I have the helicopter overview. Therefore, I can make a good decision, or I can't, in which case I can revert it back.
Beautiful, beautiful. A leadership quote you actually use.
This is a funny. So it comes from Steve Jobs. Those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who really change the world. And I think that this is like a perfect way to capture the essence of entrepreneurship. You need to be crazy to do it. Let's face it. If you are someone who is super mathematically minded and you just do the maths that 99% of startups fail, 99% of like opportunities on the market, they go to the bin. Why would you do that? What's the probability that you're gonna end up in the top 1%? It's like less than 1%. What's the probability that you are special enough to really make it? Extremely low. So you need to be crazy. We need to be crazy with passion. You need to be a crazy leader to inspire others. You need to be a crazy product designer to come up with something that people are actually going to use, actually happen in their life. And I really love this book. And whatsoever I do, whatsoever I key my lead for, key my assumption, I always believe that, recruitment crazy.
I have something similar. Update. I actually use, which is very similar, which is the fool didn't know it was impossible, so he did it.
I love it, man. I love it. You know what? I'm going to steal this one. I'm going to steal this one. We're going to steal this move.
Yeah, I love this. So I use this a lot. Okay, so one unpopular opinion about startup culture you stand by.
This is an unpopular opinion because I would say it's a really uncomfortable truth, but people forget you. Many times when you are in front of an audience, you are in a podcast, you are presenting, you are in a sales floor, there is an internal urge which is holding you back that, oh, I don't want to make a fool out of myself, I don't want to put down this ridiculous offer on the table, I don't want to be the first one in a Q&A who raise my hand because what other people are going to think about me, how it's going to reflect on me, people might gonna laugh, and in the long run, this is going to jeopardize my career. People are gonna think that I'm ridiculous. People forget you. Your mistakes, your glory, your achievements, people forget it very, very quickly. It's uncomfortable because there are a lot of people who are doing startup because, hey, I'm gonna write history, yada yada. But on the other side, is really liberating because it doesn't matter what mistakes I made. Maybe in the next 3 days, they're gonna speak about it in the city. But after that, people gonna forget. So don't worry, don't be afraid, don't overthink, just do it.
I think that's the beautiful point to end this episode, and a beautiful mindset to leave people with. Uh, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience with us, and our audience would certainly have loved this and gotten a lot out of this episode. I'm really, really thankful that we made it. Really, really appreciate you.
Smooth honor, and I do hope for you and for all who's gonna listen, it was a valuable conversation. If they have any questions or if they find that there is anything I can do for them, find me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request, let's have a chat. I'm always really passionate about helping entrepreneurs, investors, everybody in the ecosystem because back in my days, I got a lot and I do believe that it's a fair game if you find your way how to return. So thank you so much for the opportunity and I'm eager to continue the conversation.
Thank you. And to everyone listening, growth matters, but so does your health. your relationships, and how you steward your time and money. We want you to balance these three facets of life. That's all we do here. And I hope this episode in some way helped you in one of the three elements, or hopefully all three. But I really hope it was helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.